What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review Podcast, man. I'm hanging out with Rob. We're chilling. We're talking about two, I would say, pretty important split records for underground punk rock. We're going to talk about the Shit Split featuring BLATZ and FILTH, and then the split Grimple and Logical Nonsense.
A darker shade of gray, it's generally referred to as, I think.
A darker shade of gray. So,
Yeah.
50 Shades of Gray by Grimple and Logical Nonsense. So, yeah,
Almost as enticing.
right. So, yeah, we're gonna talk about these splits because here's the thing. I'm gonna be real honest, man. 75% of these splits that we're talking about, I just didn't really get into very much until way later in life. Like within the last maybe 3 or 4 years, I started listening to most of this stuff, and it'll even surprise some people which one that I listened to was because it wasn't Grimple. Um, but yeah, man, what's up, Rob? How's your day going, buddy?
Oh, it's going great, man. It's that weird. It's that weird time of year where you can't believe we're in May. It still feels like the new year, but like it's halfway gone, and I don't know where any of my time is going. I'm just chasing after time constantly and can't seem to catch it.
Isn't that crazy? It's already almost halfway over.
Yeah, and I feel like I haven't I don't know, I haven't come out of my shell yet for the year. I'm still waiting to do that, and it just really hasn't happened.
Time is a funny thing, man.
Mm.
It is a funny thing. I mean, I'm looking at it and like today it just kind of dawned on me. I was like, oh shit, punk rock bowling's next week. And I was like, oh, that's stressing me out. Like I was like,
Mm.
oh man, I really felt like I had 2 weeks from no, I don't. I got about like, I don't know, 9 days and I'll be out of here for a few days. But it's exciting, man. I'm very excited. And actually it's funny we're talking about this music because I'll be hanging out with Greg Grimple in Vegas for a little bit. I was talking to him today actually, so I'm pretty excited about that. But I'm gonna go vlog a bunch of stuff. I'm hoping to just meet a bunch of people and make a bunch of contacts and just you know see what we can make happen, man. And just have a good time. I just want to go out there and
Mm.
have fun. But it is work, man. I'm gonna go out there with a goal to stay sharp, stay sober, and make some shit happen. Bring home some cool stuff for people to watch, man. Uh, yeah. So okay, before we get started talking about like the individual albums, what do you know about this stuff? Are you familiar with these at all?
So I was generally familiar with Grimple, like we talked about last time, more as like an influence on a lot of the bands that we like. We talked about last time as like the furthest edge of skate punk. We kind of looked at
Right.
them as and now I would say, and then Logical Nonsense. My sole knowledge of Logical Nonsense is knowing that they did a split with Grimple. That has basically been my knowledge of Logical Nonsense. Now the other split, I think it's a more infamous split, the shit split, and I'm just much more familiar with BLATZ specifically, more so than Filth. Although I know quite a bit about them, just because those are bands that are much more in the core of what we always talk about, like the East Bay scene. And so and Grimple is too, but I mean Grimple's from my state over here, so they're not exactly native. Where BLATZ and Filth are born out of other East Bay bands and with a lot of hardcore East Bay scenesters making them up. So I've always been more familiar with that split and those two bands than with the Grimple Logical Nonsense stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because the split with Blatz and Filth, I I've always been kind of aware of that one, but we'll talk about more why in a few minutes. But uh, I think I was more familiar with Filth than Blatz.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I don't know what we're gonna really even say about these other than just kind of talk about our experience with them. Really, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, honestly, I think this was more of a challenging episode because typically we come in and we have a fair bit of knowledge on the subject that we're covering. I think that's kind of why I wanted to jump on this because one of the critiques of my channel is that some people feel like I don't actually like punk rock below the surface level, and I'm like, man, you're not paying much attention then, because I really do. And on the
Mm-hmm.
streams we play a ton of stuff that's super independent, super deep on the iceberg type stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, I let me pick some stuff that I really like that's not surface level stuff, and or I guess this is still within the punk rock community. These are well known, but
Mm-hmm.
Rancid and NoFX, those are bands that are known outside the punk community. But on the iceberg. We're starting to like get below, lower down below the surface of things. And I don't know. I just wanted to showcase these albums. Really, is what it is. I think part of the reason I wanted to talk about the Grimple one is because I wasn't familiar with it, and I love that band. So I guess we'll start there. We'll start talking about Grimple and Logical Nonsense. They had that split record come out. What we discussed a minute ago, it came out in what, 1994.
94. Yeah.
Man, I really thought it was later than that. I don't know. You said you thought it was earlier than that,
Yeah, in my
but
mind, this was at in my mind, this came out at the same time the other one that we're going to talk about did. I always thought that was the case.
interesting.
But it is what it is. It's one of those two, and both of these are plug these into Google, and you'll find pages and pages of Reddit pages though, and stuff like that, where people do love these albums. They're like we were talking about offline. There's just not a lot of actual information on these. Like people haven't done a bunch of podcasts on these. There haven't been a bunch of deep dives and all of that on these albums. So they sort of exist only in the songs is how they exist, at least online right now, is just in with the songs and with the memories that people who had them at the time, who played the hell out of these splits, but they didn't necessarily break through to any real resonance beyond what, like those name brand bands that you were saying, those guys referencing these bands is kind of how
Right.
what the accessibility was to this stuff.
Well, especially back before you had the internet, you had, you would listen to Grimple or Filth or Isocracy, especially down where I'm at in Texas. Like I didn't hear about those bands unless I heard Operation Ivy talk about it. Billy Joe Armstrong was talking about it. Maybe Tim Armstrong was talking about it, or somebody that was like a little bit bigger would reference these bands from another part of the country, and that's how I would start to sort of hopefully find it. But the thing is, man, a lot of people don't understand about me is that I'm not from California, man. They didn't have this stuff in Houston, dude. Like they barely had any of the old punk stuff down here. So like even with bands like the Damned and Circle Jerks and all that, they barely had that stuff at these record stores. So like it was just hard for me to find this stuff when it was the point in my life when I was gonna go do that. It
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't available. So I don't remember how I came across Grimple Up Your Ass, but that album caught my attention and blew my mind. And I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And I never knew them to even have other material out there until actually, hold on one second. I want to show you something real quick.
Okay.
Hold on one second, Rob. I got to find this thing.
Okay.
Fuck. Dude, I'm super frustrated right now. I can't find. Well, I don't want to keep you sitting here waiting for 10 minutes. I thought I had it right here next to me, but I don't see it. Shit, I'll have to find it. I feel like a dummy right now, but anyways, I have a. Okay, so basically, I knew about this record like before we talked about Grimple the last time,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know much about the record. I knew it existed. I think I'd heard it once or twice maybe. And then when I used the artwork from that album just to represent Grimple,
Mm-hmm.
somebody got really pissed off that I wasn't a big fan of the split. And I'm like, my bad, dude. And then since then, I was given a back patch, like from the early 90s by a friend of mine. Shout out Chuck. A Grimple back patch that has the artwork from this split on it, and it's got the Grimple logo up at the top. It's going to go on my new hoodie. I was hoping to get it done before PRB. I'm not sure if I'll be able to or not, but yeah, man, the artwork. So I don't know how I came across Grimple Up Your Ass, but when I did, I heard it and I liked it because it was like honestly, dude, it was like Operation Ivy mixed with like a crust band, dude. It was the weirdest sound. It was so underground and chaotic and abrasive, yet still with a little bit of pop. And you're
Mhm.
like, huh, this is a weird sound. So like a young person who is very what's the word? Influenced?
Very impressionable.
Impressionable. That's the word I was looking for. Um that's a great entry level band for or like it's a great yeah, I guess entry level, but it's not really entry level. It's below the surface. It's much more deep than that. But that kind of music from a band from that part of the underground of punk is so just brilliant because it'll grab a young kid and it'll hold on to you, and you're like, dude, this is the entry point. And so I say all that to say that when you get to this, it's a completely different sound. I mean, it doesn't sound even remotely the same, honestly. Like
Mhm.
there's little bits and pieces that sound like Greg's vocals from Grimple Up Your Ass, but the meat and potatoes of this are just quite a bit different.
Well, just a much heavier album than or collection of songs than Grimple Up Your Ass. Grimple Up Your Ass sounds like what we refer to as like this main influence in skate punk. It
Right.
sounds like that genre. This has remnants of that. It's clearly the same band, but this is a completely different direction, sound, artwork, like everything about this is just a little darker, a little heavier, a little more in line with two of the other bands that we're talking about today. So it loses a little bit of that personality that I think that is there on Grandpa Up Your Ass, but the songs are still engaging and entertaining enough and have enough humor and melody, like you were saying, where it still kind of works. But yeah, if you put them kind of next to each other, I would assume they were almost two different bands and like two different bands of very
Yeah.
similar sounds. But yeah, there is a big departure, and I would think that it would have happened in the reverse order. Like these songs would have came out first before they had those ones, but
Right.
it's just not the way it was. And I don't know enough about the band to know what they would feel is truly like their sound. Maybe that's something you can discuss with them, like what kind of style, or even if they really see a distinction in the style.
So I've actually, since we had all this conversation start, I've actually had Greg on the show.
Hmm.
So if anybody's interested, you can go back and watch the video where I talked to him. My memory is really poor, and for reasons I've explained many times on this channel, my apologies to anybody that gets bothered by that. But if I remember correctly, he was saying that they wanted to write a heavier sound, and it bothered him that they sounded so different that he was like, "Why are we going to even call it Grimple?"
Hmm.
Like he was like, I don't mind doing the music, but I don't understand." And again, if I remember correctly, but I'll link that video in the description of this one because we are also going to talk again. He and I we're going to get on the show again, probably post Punk Rock Bowling, and just kind of talk about that in addition to just some other things. But he wants to talk about some of his other bands, and he had other projects. So, but as far as I know, it was a effort to go in and write songs that weren't as melodic, weren't as poppy, and be a little heavier. I mean, it went from basically a like hybrid of a crust punk skate punk band to like thrash metal. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like way different.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it was because of the inclusion of logical nonsense or what, but it's a far different sound. And anybody that gets on here and is irritated that I don't know more history on this, tell me the history on it. I just don't know it. I'm sorry. I'm not talking about the history of this thing necessarily. Well, I mean, we are, but only to the degree that we know. We're more or less just talking about the album and our experience with it. So if you have some information on this, by all means, please bring it to the table.
It does help understand though the way, like in the modern context, when people try to explain skate punk, like what are the specifics of that genre. One of the things people bring up but without much explanation is the metal riffing that
Right.
skate punk has that the other punk genres don't necessarily. Now they don't bring in a lot of the other stuff from the metallic genres, but specifically the riffing. You can really hear it with both of the Grimple releases though, where what people are talking about when they say that metal type of riffing. You hear it in this because like we talked about last time, it's less refined, less produced, less something different than it's more of like, again, skate punk with the influences less mixed and more just turned up all the way
Right.
and put there. And so you hear a lot of that riffage and you hear some of the melody that riffage can make. And so that's why I still think this band, even though like some of the stuff we talk about would have came out after this one, you still can kind of just find the influences or find where the more polished skate punk, what it what it looks like when it's stripped down, so to speak. Can look like at a more in an unrefined manner. I think Grimple is kind of the best at that. At this collection of songs, I think vocally, lyrically, aren't quite as engaging as the other album because they're
Well,
they're just a little more straightforward.
it depends on your definition of engaging, I guess,
Mm,
because I think they're just as, if not more engaging, but I don't think that they're as well. They're not as poppy. They're not as my style
mhm,
as the other ones are. But you can listen to this and hear like, okay, this is a band that wants to be like have their like toe dipped in. Like maybe they're friends with a bunch of bands that are on Fat and Lookout, but they don't really care to necessarily be like a fat band. And they
mhm,
certainly don't want to sign to some major label. They just want to be like a punk band and make whatever they want. And it's obvious because they made two completely different sounds within two releases. And the vocal, I thought the vocal performance on this was harder to accomplish than the vocal performance
mhm.
on Grimple Up Your Ass. He seems like he's more having a good time on that record, and on this one there's a lot of force being fed through his vocal cords to make the sounds, and it's a much faster and heavier album, like way faster and way
Well,
way heavier.
he has to kind of keep up with the songs and serve the songs, right? I think his vocals are much more of the centerpiece of the other work.
That's a good point. His vocals are what drew me in. The
Mhm.
guitar tone's pretty great on the first record because it's got this like tinny, like trash can tone, if that makes any sense. It's like this real kind of hollow metal, like
Sounds like what guitars sound like in the bedroom. It sounds like when you're when
oh
people mess
yeah,
around on guitars. That's kind of
yeah,
what a lot of this early punk, to be honest, why it's part of what it's endearing about it is I think we've all made these sounds with power chords. It's
right,
that sort of. There's something about it that, and with everything we're talking about today, that feels like I could do that. Like I can't, but it feels like I could. It's
right.
like inspiring
If
enough to feel like you can.
the guitar tone sounds like something like you recorded it on a camcorder, and that
Mhm.
was the actual recording that you used for your album. It's like, what
And
are
it's
you
funny because
doing?
nowadays that's like actually a sound that people like put
Oh, dude,
into their albums.
they want to replicate that so bad.
Like I was hearing a band and they're pretty good. I think they're called Pup. They're from Canada and they had a new album that came out a couple weeks ago. And I checked it out and it was like purposely lo-fi. And it's like it's weird when a punk band has to work to be lo-fi, but it's like that just used to come very natural to all punk bands. But
Somebody was
we've
bugging
come
me
so
about that
far.
album on the stream yesterday. They're like, "Play the new Pup," and I was like, "I don't know what that is, and I don't care right now. I had like 30 things I had to do still." I was like, "No, dude, we got a criteria, not criteria, itinerary."
It was one of those things that it got a little bit of mainstream attention and it had the word punk on it. So like, okay, I have to check it. Like I felt like obligation to see
Have you
what it
heard?
was.
Have you heard Teen Mortgage yet?
No, I can
You
check
should
that out.
listen to that, man. I'm working on like a in-depth review on it. It was that good. Um, pardon me. And we're talking a lot about Grimple. I don't want to ignore logical nonsense. I
Mhm.
literally have 1% the experience with that band that I do Grimple. So but that's another reason why I wanted to listen to this record because I wanted to get through. I'll be honest, man. I tell you what, let's pivot over to logical nonsense for a
Okay.
minute. They're like according to the internet, anyways, it calls them a hardcore band. I think that actually fits, man. They're from
Mhm.
Santa Fe, New Mexico. They started in the late 80s, went through the early 90s. Um, when I was listening to this, now people might say I'm wrong. It's okay. I only listened to it a few times. I've listened to it twice in the last couple of weeks. I was getting a lot of early integrity in this stuff. Like I was hearing a lot of Cleveland hardcore mixed with some other sounds, but I was getting a lot of stuff that I thought, oh, this could have been. I didn't like it at first. It took me a few minutes to get into it, but once I got into it, I was like, okay, I like the guy's vocals, and then I was like, okay, I like the guitar tone. And I was like,
Mhm.
all right, I need to like pivot my brain from wanting to hear punk to wanting to hear hardcore, and then I'll understand.
Mhm.
So that's why I had to listen to it a second time because I was like, the first time I genuinely was like, ugh, and but I wasn't in the mood for it. And once I got in the mood for it, and I was like looking forward to listening to it again, I was like, okay. And so there are songs on this from them that I really enjoy, but I don't have much experience with them, and I certainly have almost no knowledge on the band. Do you know anything about
I
Logical Nonsense
I
other
feel really
than
dumb because now that I'm looking at them and Grimple are from around here,
right?
and I didn't know either one of them were necessarily. I should dive into the Santa Fe hardcore shit, which I know there's the scene over here. It's one of those things where there's some old scenesters and some stuff that goes way back, and there's a little bit of lore, but it's relatively small. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it doesn't always reach that outsider. I would like to do a little more on them. Like I said, my knowledge from them is the other band that's on the Grimple split is basically how I've always experienced them. And what you're saying is exactly right. You have to be in the full hardcore East Coast kind of, you're really doing that thing to get into it. And for me, I'm not from California either, but I very much ground myself with this West Coast kind of way of always looking at punk. And I
Right.
think even when I look at the hardcore that I tend to like, it tends to have that California tinge to it, which always has a little bit of, I don't know if it's poppiness necessarily, but there's just something about the way the coast produce rock that's a little bit different, and you could always kind of feel it. And again, this happened in Santa Fe, so this did not come out of the East Coast, but it has much more of that feel than like the Grimple stuff has. The Grimple stuff you could think that came out of California, where this definitely sounds like East Coast hardcore with no chill in it, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you just kind of have to be in the mood for it when you're ready to listen to it. And I keep bringing the Grimple into it, but the Grimple part of it though really sets you up, I think, if you listen to it all the way through, to be ready for it. Because by the time you get to the Grimple, you're okay with this stuff. This stuff, and I find hardcore like that in general, like out of context. To me, hardcore kind of sounds the same until you actually start listening to it. Because out of context,
Right.
like I kind of become like the old person who says that about heavy metal. That's just screaming and noise. Like I know that's not true, but
Right.
whenever you're just listening to it on a surface level, like you're saying, it does sort of come across that way until you really dive into it to get the full experience of it.
You know, I feel stupid asking this, but which band comes first on the album? Is it Logical Nonsense?
I'm pretty sure it's Grimple.
Oh, it is Grimple, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, you're right. It does make sense. Once you get through the Grimple stuff, you're a little more primed and ready for this. I
Mhm.
listened to it, I think on Spotify, and I went to Grimple's page, so I just was like, I wasn't sure if that was the
Yeah,
correct layout.
I was shocked that everything we're listening today was on streaming, because I did not prepare for that when I thought we were going to talk about this. I thought it was going to be YouTube rips and everything else, and both these
Oh no,
albums were on streaming.
I knew they were both on there, and I was that's one of the reasons why I knew it'd be okay to bring them into the to our idea of what,
Mm.
or excuse me, our itineraries, because I knew that they were easily accessed at this point in our life. But I'm seeing something here that actually makes me maybe not rethink my description, but definitely add more to it. If you take Grimple and you mix it with and like Cleveland hardcore, integrity, and ringworm, and then you just dash a little bit of neurosis on there,
Mhm.
you get logical nonsense. And I just found out that they had at least one more EP and I believe an LP, so I'm gonna go listen to that as well. Santa Fe, New Mexico. That's a crazy place to be from and sound like this, in my opinion.
Santa
I
Fe is a
don't.
very artistic town. So Santa Fe
Okay.
is a southwest version of San Francisco, for context. So if
Okay.
art comes out of like, it's weird that angry art comes out of San Francisco as well. But uh if it's basically it's a miniature version, it's a small town version of San Francisco. They're very much connected cities. So there's a ton of art that comes out of there. Then like there is like I'm getting now on Instagram, for whatever reason it thinks that I live in Santa Fe, so I'm getting all the concert announcements that are coming through, which when you're young, you think the only place that has punk is in the city that you're in, and you don't
Right.
realize that, yeah, because it's happening at clubs and stuff. It's not necessarily mass advertised, but I'm seeing a lot of it come through there. So that doesn't a band of this tone, and again, bands I do see from Santa Fe they go all over the place, but a band of this tone is a little odd, but something weird and artistic coming out of that city doesn't necessarily surprise me.
I I'm glad I gave it a second shot because I really didn't care much for it at first.
Mhm.
I've learned something over the past 2 years doing this channel, man. And I can't believe I had to say this, dude. I never really thought like this. I used to think I heard something once, I didn't care for it. I might give it a second chance, but if I don't like it at that point, I'll never go back to it. Dude, you have to go back to things 3, 4, 5 times sometimes before you just click. And sometimes it may not click for you.
Mhm.
But if you don't give it a proper go, it won't click for you. And I feel like even the sight of Grimple on this split, I wasn't necessarily interested in liking until I made myself go listen to it. And then I was like, no, I just really like this band. I like Greg's vocals. I like what he talks about. And okay, if I like this guy's stuff, then obviously I want to give this other band a shot because they were cool enough to go and do a split together. So what does that tell me? They were probably friendly. Well, you don't really stick around with people that you're not similar to. Let's see what this guy's talking about. Oh, his vocals are pretty good too. I actually started with the vocals on this guy. I was like, okay, that's what I like at first. I liked his
Mhm.
vocals. And I was like, okay, let me start going backwards. Usually I'm like guitar tone immediately. If it doesn't, you know, grab me, I take off. But man, as I get a little older, dude, like it is what it is, man. As I get older, I seem to gravitate towards much more tame music. And
Isn't that funny?
it's annoying because I so desperately want to still really love chaotic, noisy music. Like I'm doing another podcast later tonight,
Mhm.
and we're talking about that band Tragedy, which I'm I love Tragedy, so I'm not really tripping. But the other band that we picked, I let Nitty pick it because I was like, "What do you want to listen to?" And he was like, "Skid System," and I was like, "Cool." I knew them, and I was like, "Man, I used to like them." And then I listened to it. It's so like noisy, like there's white noise in there. It's like this wall
Mhm.
of like, shh. It gives me a headache. It makes me grind my teeth. That didn't used to happen,
Mhm.
and so I guess I'm just making a long way around saying I'm just glad that like stopped, made myself give this an opportunity to uh, be a record that I enjoy because I own a copy of it because I'm a Grimple fan, and I
Mhm.
think it's stupid to own records that you'll never listen to. So you know,
I think your general point there too about giving stuff a second chance and stuff is probably something that a lot of people don't do nowadays. That like, back in the day, you'd get a CD and you'd have to be stuck with it because you paid it, or you heard the song on the radio. Unless you change the station, you got to listen to the whole song. Well, now I get this thing and I don't like the first few minutes of guitar tone or something like that, and I just flip on to the next one. So I wonder how much stuff we just don't give a chance and allow to grow anymore because we tend to have that mentality. And there's so much stuff. Like there's literally every piece of music I could ever want is on this thing. So your mind only has so much real estate to go. And I think that's part of the thing too on some of the like the heavier music. It's sometimes where I'll go away from it is, and I hate that I'm the old guy like this. I feel like I've heard it all, and that's not necessarily true. And there's always new stuff you can learn and hear through but like there is something to like, oh yeah, heavy hard stuff. I've been listening to that for 35 years. And so I occasionally do look for other stuff. Not that I won't always go back to this stuff as like my core and the stuff that I appreciate the most, but I do understand why like the older punk rockers when they were in their late 30s, early 40s, and I was younger watching them and they're exploring all these different types of genres of music. And I'm thinking, what the hell's wrong with those guys? They make the greatest music ever. I kind of get it now. I do.
right? Yeah, I didn't even give music a chance like past one or two listens until like I'm gonna say like for real, like a year ago. But before
Mhm.
that, maybe 2 years ago, I started kind of doing that. I remember on my old channel, I listened to an artist so much that I flip flopped on him. Like, and it was bad because I used to hate him. Like, I hated, and I made probably 15 videos talking about how trash this dude was. And then all of a sudden, one day, he dropped a new song, and some kid was like, "Hey, I need you to listen to this for me." And I was like, he was like a Patreon supporter, and I was like, "All right, whatever." And so I listened to it, and I was like, it just clicked, and I was like, "Ah, fuck, this is not gonna be fun." And I was like, but yeah, man. I think this was a great split. I don't agree that it's better than their other LP, and I
Mhm.
haven't heard Logical Nonsense's LP. So I can't really speak on that. But as far as on the Grimple side of things, I still think that Grimple Up Your Ass reigns supreme. But I also like a little bit of pop sensibility in my punk rock, and some people
Mhm.
don't like that. So there's going to be a certain amount of people in the comments that are like, "Nope, this is the superior one." And my message to you would be, "Yeah, sure. If that's what you like, that's what you like, man. It's all good, dude."
Thank God it's punk rock, and these are like 20 songs between both albums, like 20 songs in the history of punk rock, and you can get through them in about a 30-minute sitting and listen to both of them, and you don't necessarily have to make a choice.
Big facts. People are so strange about that, though. You're a poser because you don't like the faster, heavier one. I'm like, okay, that's what makes me a poser. Fuck, dude. I thought
Yep.
it was all the corporate shilling I do for
Yeah, I
friends.
would I have like 10 other things that make you a poser on top of that.
Hey, that's all it is. Then good. But yeah, man, I think I would give this probably like a 7 out of 10.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah,
think
that
it's like super, super crazy good, but it's definitely not bad. The production's good. The length of time that it takes to get through it is, I think, appropriate. Uh, I think that they both match really well. And it's not some kind of split where you go, this shouldn't even be a split.
mhm.
But I have something that I will talk about in just a minute that I think you're going to agree with.
Okay.
But yeah, how do you feel about this album in
So I would give
totality?
it around that 7 range as well. Like you said, I don't think it's crazy good because I don't think there's any like super classics on here either. And maybe
Right.
those fan bases would disagree with there might be some, but um so that I would knock it down just a little bit. It's very very listenable though, and I say that for this stuff that's not recorded in very very super high quality, but it's
Right.
very listenable.
See,
It's not poorly recorded, if that makes sense.
I actually would disagree with you there a little bit. I think it's actually recorded quite well. Like I
Mm,
like the production on it. I think the production
mm,
is one of the high points. I would like to know from the audience what is the song or songs that you think are the better on the split. Because I like to go get people's opinion and then go pinpoint and focus on something and then really critique the song versus the album, and then I can really listen to that one song a few times or those
mm.
few songs, over and over. But yeah, what are the songs that you guys are really interested in on this album? What are the ones that really have the, I guess, replayability, the staying power? But
I will throw out there. I loved PC by Grimple. That one uh, really got me.
let
I
me
also
look at
like
the.
No Return, which is the final song, which is a little bit slower. Which is another thing I'm just noticing on all these reviews. I tend to like the slow end of album tracks that a lot of these bands come out. And then when it comes to Logical Nonsense, I liked Pig Blood Blues. I thought that one was the one that really got my attention, but it was hard for me. The one with the Wendy Omatic on there is kind of cool, but that one is a little more of a performance than a
That's
full
the one.
song.
That's the only one that I didn't really like.
Mhm.
I preferred all the other ones. I liked Raised and Before the Act from Logical Nonsense. And then on the Grimple side of things, the first three songs I thought were really, really great. Honestly, everything. Crucify is probably my favorite one, actually.
Mhm.
Crucify was awesome. That song's great. Yeah, I do want to hear from the audience. What do you guys think? What is y'all's favorite songs on here? Give me like y'all's top two or three. Overall, I think 7 out of 10 is a pretty great score if you ask me. Some
Mhm.
people may disagree. That's fine. Yeah. And on that, I say we move on to the next split because once we talk about this album a little bit, I do have an idea towards the end of the video that I want to talk about. Just throw it to you and see what you think.
All right.
Yeah, man. Heck yeah. Dude, I can't. We got through 30 minutes of that. I'm actually a little surprised.
Yeah, I'm shocked. I thought it was gonna be like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I looked up at the clock and it said about that amount of time, and I went, hmm. And then we just had a little bit more to add and a little bit more. I mean, we repeated ourselves a little bit, but not much, man. For, for bands that don't have a documented history like we want, it's tough, man. I rely on the audience a lot of times. I think
Mhm.
people hear me talk and they think I know everything, and I don't. This is a community to me. It is a platform for us to all get on here and talk as long as you're not being, shitty. And I have the right to dictate whether or not I think you should stick around. So if you act crazy, I'm just going to get you out of here. And I mean like crazy, like saying like gnarly racist stuff or weird sexist stuff. I'm getting you out of here, man. I got time for that. You talk a little shit and I can deal with that. But like the other stuff, I'm not dealing with it. So, but I deal with I do maybe not depend upon, but I do enjoy the community interaction on this stuff. Okay, let's see here. I did not write enough. Oh, I did write something down on here. Okay, good. I was like, man, did I write this down? All right, yeah. So we got okay in 1991 on Lookout Records originally. Later, it was on another label, and then it came out third press on Alternative Tentacles. We get BLATZ and Filth, the shit split. All right. So BLATZ was a punk rock band from Berkeley in the late 80s, all the way through like the early 90s. They didn't last a long time. But they were very much a Berkeley sounding punk band. They had a male and female singer, which I think is pretty cool. I also heard Billy Joe Armstrong play guitar with them for a short while. I don't know if that's true or not.
Mhm.
But the Blatt's got a very shrill female on part of the vocals, man. Very flip floppy on the vocals on that. Sometimes I really like it, sometimes I don't. When I was younger, though, I absolutely loved it, man. I watched some live footage. Might have been yesterday or today. I can't remember. I think it was today from '91 in
Mhm.
prep for this video. And I really think that they were a band that was better suited for a live performance. The
They're definitely more art than music. They definitely are
right,
on that spectrum. Yeah.
You talk about BLATZ, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that they were the kind of band that if you see them live, then no matter what the recordings sound like, you're gonna like it a lot. And I'll repeat myself from earlier. I'm from Houston. I didn't have access to this stuff when I was a kid. When I got a hold of this one, I was probably almost 20 already when I got a hold of this album. Her vocals on Cheaper Than Beer, the Cheaper Than Beer 7 inch, excuse me, which is part of this split. That's the stuff I don't actually like. After that,
Hmm.
I like her vocals a lot more, and I think it's more or less the recording on that than it is the actual vocal styling. Her vocals are way up front; they're way loud on the actual mix. So I do want to make a point to say I don't actually think it's her vocals I have a problem with. I think it's the mix on that specific part of the album, and it sucks too because it's the very first part of it. So if you get out a record and you put it on side A, track one, play, then I may not make it to track two or three.
Hmm.
It's really loud, very shrill, very like chalkboardy, dude. Nails on it. Oh, even saying that makes me just kind of, oh man. But the lyrics and the message from BLATZ are on point.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, listening to this is like a time capsule, like right into the late '80s and early '90s, man. It's a sound that I still look for with modern bands. I never really seem to find it, but I do look for it. That's what makes it special, in my opinion. You know?
Yeah, for me, like when I heard this sound, it reminded me of like going to like the Warp Tour back in the day and picking up some random CD for like $2 for some
Yeah.
like some girl group that I'd never heard of, and then putting it in and thinking it was pretty awesome. Never actually the band never would do anything or anything like that, but it had that sort of spirit to it,
Yep.
and it endlessly does. You talked about who it was made up of. There's two females that are actually a part of the
Oh,
band.
okay. I thought it was just one.
Yeah, one she's actually this like famous like academic now and all kinds of
Oh,
stuff.
really?
Uh,
That's
uh,
cool.
an activist and all that. And then you also have
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Eggplant, who is the guitarist. Eggplant is this like legendary singster from the East Bay. Like there's all the
Okay.
stories before this, and BLATZ is part of this too. Of like Eggplant is just the guy that's at every show that like people didn't know. Like, does the guy go to school? Does he do it? Like he's
That's
just that
awesome.
he was that punk kid in town, and was also like in the know in terms of on the zines, on all the business side of things. He was just kind of
I've
one of those
actually heard
guys.
the
So,
name.
so yeah, Robert Eggplant, I forget what his last name is, and and uh and so it's this kind of collection of friends to throw together this band that I don't know that they necessarily had any intent with in the first place, other than just kind of to do their thing. You talked about their live shows. Their live shows are kind of the stuff of legend of BLATZ. So they have these crazy live shows. They're naked part of some of their shows. Like it's just
Huh. That's
like
awesome.
like Davey Havoc said, like a BLATZ show is just absolute chaos. He said everything you could ever want all at once, every excess is just kind of right in front of you. And
Did
that's
they
it's like this.
cover an
Yeah,
AFI song?
AFI covers some of their stuff. Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
AFI covers their song. Duh. I
Yes.
should have known better than that. That was a stupid thing for me to say.
Yeah, and so like but it's funny to me because I think of like a young like Davey Havoc hanging out at Gilman, hanging out in the East Bay, and just seeing like the BLATZ is just the craziest thing that you could possibly.
100%.
And think about like we talk about all this other East Bay stuff. It kind of has a real wholesome kind of nature to it. A lot of the other East Bay stuff that we talk about, it's very like kid friendly. And then you get into BLATZ, which BLATZ is very much a like a rated R, or I'd say like a
Oh, dude.
like an adult themed kind of band. The song, even though they sound like Ritalin fueled teenagers, is sort of the sound, and I think that's by intent. The message, as you're saying, is very on point, very heavy. There's a lot of intensity in these songs, even with that high shrill voice.
Oh,
But
well, that's part of the reason for the intensity, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
but if you
We're
get
not,
past
yeah.
no, it's sort of how that intensity is being expressed. If you get past that, though, there's good melody here. These songs are actually fairly catchy, and you can feel a lot of other punk rock in these, either punk rock that came later or punk rock that came before it. Again, I think if you can get past some of the parts like you're saying with the vocal style and stuff like that, it does become very listenable if you listen to the right versions, because there's a few different versions of these same songs.
Yes, I do think that the version of the song you get is very important with this band. I think that one of the things that I was, I guess, pondering as I was listening to this was, I guess pondering is the wrong word. I wasn't really questioning it. I was more or less just thinking, oh, if
reflecting. Yeah.
yeah, this sounds like a further down the line of progress or evolution of what X-Ray Specs was doing.
Mm-hmm.
More chaotic. I like X-Ray Spec. What is her name? God damn it,
Polystyrene.
Polystyrene. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I really like her vocals a lot. Like she would be top one or two female vocalists for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see where somebody like this would hear that and then go do this, and it would be a direct descendant of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I hadn't listened to BLATZ much over the years because of the shrill nature in the vocals, and specifically with this, I think this was a CD, and then I think it was a double disc CD even.
Mm-hmm.
I never even listened to it because I'd put it on and get through one or two songs and just be like, I can't do it with her. And so I was like probably in my 30s before I listened to the whole thing. Well, the whole BLATZ side,
Mm-hmm.
and realized that, oh, it's the recording, this is the issue. So when I got back to it this time, I knew that, and I still had a hard time getting through the first few
Mm-hmm.
songs. Man, I was like, golly, this is bad. The mix is so horrible. But
It's
some
hard to
people
get
probably
into
love it, I bet.
initially. I had the same experience just going into the and I listened to it a few times over the years. I'm generally familiar with them, but it was hard to sit down and like it's like a movie. Like there's like good movies, but you have to like turn the lights off, be full, all those things to really enjoy some of
Right.
those movies. I kind of felt like there was a similar sensation with this at first, where I was like, I remember I would listen to these songs as I was just driving around the last couple of weeks, and then I immediately flipped back to the Bad Religion playlist I was listening to because that felt so much more weighty and meaningful then and so it took a little bit to sort of earworm this into me, and then it became something that I was playing a few extra times just because like oh yeah I do like that it is fun it is I feel like if you want to bring the fun of a punk show onto a recording, I think BLATZ kind of does that they sort of capture a being in the room kind of environment, and that's what you hear on a lot of these songs.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong about that. I don't know that I would say that Bad Religion's any more, what was the word you used?
Weighty is
Weighty than this, because I think it's just a subjective
mm,
thing. I'm not saying you're wrong either. I think for me, I think that the weight of the lyrics in this are just as heavy as they would be for Bad Religion. But I can see where you're coming from. So I'm not trying to say that
mm,
you're wrong. Yeah, I don't quite get to that point with the black stuff. I like it okay, but you know, I mean, the fuck shit up is pretty great. Homemade Speed's a great song. Dolly, I don't care about you. The second version of fuck shit up's even better in my opinion.
mm.
But I could really kind of take it or leave it. I don't really need it. I don't care about it as much as I do Filth. I probably would never even listen to this if it wasn't for Filth. Um, yeah, I don't want to bag on it though. I like. It's really just that first part drives me nuts. Like, who decided to put that as the first part? It really bothers me because I'm like, I look at it from a consumer's
I
point of
don't know
view.
that portion that's on streaming though was always on every release of it.
Oh, okay. I mean, it may not be.
I want to say there was some shorter versions. I want to say the streaming version is is a little bit bigger than maybe what the original release, but because it's been released a few times too. So
Yes.
there so that
I'm
I
super
may be wrong
irritated.
about that.
I've got a copy of this at my shop and I meant to bring it home and I forgot it sitting on my desk,
Mm.
or my countertop rather, not my desk, my counter at the shop. Uh, the I'm pretty sure it's laid out the same.
Is it and
Yeah,
again I
I'm
could be
actually
wrong about
trying to.
that.
I think because it's a double disc, it's double on both. It's double
Mm.
LP and it's a double CD. So I'm pretty sure. Again, I'm probably in the minority here. I'm certain there are people, probably a fair amount of them, that like the way that sounds. It's just a piercing noise that I don't really care for. I mean,
Mm.
we'll use Nitty as an example. He likes really noisy, chaotic music. Like that is enjoyable to him.
Mm.
And it's literally just where we start to part ways. And I'm like, I
Mhm.
can't. I like the guitar riff that you're hearing, man, but whatever they're putting on top of that shit is killing my ears. And he's like, no, that's what I like about it. So I'm likely going to be in the minority of this. I don't mean to talk any disrespect. I'm not trying to be rude. I liked it overall. And, my only point is if it was just the BLATZ EP or something, I don't know how much I'd love it. But since it's connected to something that I do really enjoy, which is Filth, we'll get into that in just a minute here.
Mm.
Uh, you know, it is what it is. I just like it because of that. But it's a very, very famous and popular and important split LP.
Yeah, and I really think that but I forgot the point I was just gonna make.
There we go. I've done that. I do that so often,
I
dude.
had something really loaded, and as soon as I looked up, I could see it in my brain when I went blank.
That's funny,
I,
bro.
I honestly don't know what the I was gonna say there. Um, I do enjoy
Oh,
I do enjoy the lyrics of some of these songs, and I say that unironically though.
oh no, the lyrics on them are great. I my issues with it are very minimal in number, but important because of what they do.
Mm,
But there's a lot to like about this, even with my complaints. So
mm,
I do want to reiterate that. I want to make sure people understand that I'm not talking shit. I like it. I just may not like it as much as everybody else. Today's lesson, uh, that's the AFI song. Or that's this, golly, dude.
that's
That's the song
one that
AFI covered.
if I
Excuse
covered,
me.
yeah.
Let's see. What is that one? Where's that at? Let's see. Anyways, bro, my brain is fried right now. So let's pull up some information on Filth because Filth is a band that I've always enjoyed but know very little about. I love their logo and I love dude's vocals. Like the
Mm,
vocals are what really it's like it's like this. Okay, so there's a band called Contact. They're the first cassette tape that I released that was punk was this band called Contact, and the whole entire reason that I liked them and put out a record is because they sounded like Filth. The vocals sounded like it and everything, and I was like, I can't believe this dude sounds like Filth. And I don't know a lot about Filth because I'm not from the area and I just never dove into it. But man, the shit split got a lot of attention from my group of friends because of Filth. Like everybody that I was friends with, they liked Filth. We didn't really care
mm.
about BLATZ as much, and I don't even remember seeing anybody with like BLATZ gear. I was all Filth patches, Filth shirts. Like they got real big down here in Texas, dude. Like real big.
I do think of BLATZ as less of a real band, if that makes
Oh, okay,
sense.
maybe.
And I think that has something you know what I mean. And again, they release music, they recorded, they played shows. They are a real band. But again, I think of them
Mhm.
more as that performance art, more so. And I think of Filth as a much more straightforward group. In that way,
Yeah,
Filth is a little bit older in terms of what I think where they came within the scene. I think they came out of, and I might have this wrong. They came out of the ashes of Isocracy, but Isocracy is a completely different sounding band than
right.
Filth. You know,
Yeah,
Isocracy would be more similar to BLATZ, to be honest with you. They're more they're
yeah,
more they're more
yeah.
of a jokey, silly band, and this was their version of putting the metallic sounds and the hardcore and doing that into the East Bay sound. I would say it's still very much an East Bay sound though, because the guitar specifically, I think the guitar it has a like a melodic. I don't know. The sound isn't necessarily poppy, but what the way that the songs are structured have a little bit of melody to them in this very hardcore environment, which I think makes it kind of uniquely East Bay in the way that it sound.
Well,
I think there's like an East Bay guitar there, something that I'm hearing that sounds like a lot of this other poppier East Bay stuff.
well, it's because that's where they're from.
Hmm.
I mean, you can't get away from that. If that's where you're from and you're hanging out with those people and you're writing songs, you may have the crusty, hardcore, like crusty, whatever version of that,
Hmm.
but it's still a version of that. So you're going to have these amazing, like screechy, is what I call them, screechy vocals over like this almost like tinny hardcore guitar with a dash of poppy in there. Like it is a lot of sounds mixed in. There's
Hmm.
not a lot of bands that sound like any of this stuff that we're talking about today. I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know any other bands that remind me of Grimple. Really, I don't know any other bands that really remind me of Filth until I heard that band Contact. And like, it's interesting. It's real interesting to have a band that sounds like this. But I mean, on this album, dude, every single Filth song is one that I was like, "Oh, I like that song. Oh, I like
Hmm.
that song. Oh, I like that song." And some of it's live. I don't really, or not. Excuse me. Oh, God, dude, I can't talk today. Um, actually, I never really watched any live footage of Filth. I don't know what that would have been like. I imagine it'd be fun.
Yeah, I don't want
Um,
to say I've seen clips here and there, but I can't think I've ever sat down and watched like a full song or a set, and I think it's not quite the performance art that something like BLATZ is. It's more straightforward,
no, it's
uh,
more. It's got more
hardcore.
like, yeah, it's got. I see here on the internet it says somebody calls it crustcore. I really hate that term, but it also fits kind of well.
Mhm.
because I can hear both influences, hardcore, like early, like actual early American hardcore, and then like
Mm,
crust punk.
hmm.
But I would consider it more of a like a crust punk band than I would anything else.
And it's funny because the split probably seems odd to people in terms of like these two bands being
Oh, it's
together.
incredibly odd.
This split was just another outgrowth of these two bands were just always together. And again, because you're made up of these old school scenesters who are probably all like best friends or
Right.
connected or in other bands. I think there's a few guys that were in both BLATZ and FILTH at different times. That definitely there was a through line, and they people a lot of times will cite BLATZ and FILTH and their partnership as why we can't really say that the East Bay is a sound or a genre. It's more of a scene because you have a lot of these different bands that like BLATZ and FILTH would tour and play shows together all the time. And you think about what like their songs are completely different styles of songs and all that. And people would talk about, all these other scenes have their really strict, like these bands play together, these bands play together. This comes from this part of the country, this comes from this. And the East Bay, especially in this time period, where it's a lot of collection of again younger misfit kids, but also like people coming from other places and applying their craft and all this stuff that they're doing over there. That it was not odd, especially at a Gilman Street or anywhere else, to just have these weird bills. And people credit Filth and BLATZ was sort of setting that stage of as long as they were from the East Bay, as long as maybe they were lookout bands or they have some connection, yeah, they can tour together, they can be together, and they're kind of in the same vein. And I think it probably did help a lot of these younger punkers that we started listening to later on when they're coming up and they're listening to so much stuff that's not necessarily, it's before the internet really opened stuff up, but stuff that's not necessarily so siloed. And you have a lot of this stuff starting to mix together. But the way of mixing it together, in the early 90s is not by just going on a playlist and looking for everything. You literally have to mix it together and tour together and present your stuff together on splits and the such.
Yeah, I don't think that they were that different outside of like the sonic noises that you get out of each band. I think when you get below that or past that, however you want to word it, I think that Filth and BLATZ are very similar bands. I think that their ideologies are the same, their lyrics are the same. Like what they feel is important within society is probably very much aligned.
Mm,
Uh, but pointing out that BLATZ is more of like a performance project and a full fledged band makes so much sense to me once I even because I watched a couple of the videos, but even that it even made sense in that aspect. And I
mm.
was like, oh, okay, I can see that. So I don't know how much they toured, how much stuff they put out, but this album is incredibly sought after. I know every time I have a copy, people freak out and want to come pick it
It
up.
it's but again, like go on the internet and like throw this one into Reddit, and people loved people who remember from their when they were teenagers skateboarding, listening to this split. Like it's one of those things that has really just imprinted, one of those things that doesn't have wide circulation, but people it resonated with people.
I never thought about doing this until right this second, but I think I might start dropping a little picture on Reddit and going, "Hey, I'm going to cover this on my podcast. What do y'all know about it?" And just seeing what the community says.
Mm.
Like, I mean, who knows? It'll probably be a lot of repeating, but I don't know.
You came up on Reddit, dude. I forgot what it was that you there was a reference to your channel or something. I was playing with AI and I was asking it questions about all of us.
I mean,
And I looked for sources, and one of the sources for you was on Reddit for
what was it? Was it in reference to Lil Peep being better than black metal?
no, it was a punk rock reference. It was from it was
Probably somebody hating me.
no, it was actually it said something about your enthusiasm when you or did you check out this guy's enthusiasm for this or something like
Oh,
that.
that's cool.
It says you
Well,
you you and I are known for our chemistry and banter back and forth is what the AI told me
well, at
about.
least it wasn't shitting on me because that happens a lot on Reddit. People don't like me much, which I find odd that they watch it all the time if they hate me so much. Like,
That is a weird thing to do with YouTube specific. Like there's a lot I understand like if there's a sports team that you don't like, but they're your team, like they're in a bad run, and you're forcing yourself to watch them because you support them. If you don't like your YouTube channel, just watch the video right underneath, right? That would seem to make a lot more sense.
there's all kinds of channels you can watch. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I really enjoy Filth's vocals. I one thing that I have thought for years and years and years is that it would have made so much more sense to have a Grimple and Filth split. Like I have definitely made that split on cassette tapes. Like I was like, well, I like this better. I'll just put these together.
so,
Um,
so you've made the split, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't know, dude. Like Logical Nonsense is a good band. BLATZ is a good band, but like neither of those two bands, I think, even are remotely as good as the other two. As far as like, and I'm being kind of, I guess it's kind of a shitty thing to say. I don't mean to be like shitty about it, but I mean, on any given day, if I was to go pick out of those four bands what to listen to, I don't know that the BLATZ and Logical Nonsense are ever going to get any airplay. Like they're just going to sit there and collect dust, and they're not bad bands. I guess that's what it is. They're not bad. They're just not. They're not as important to me.
Mhm.
But I feel kind of like I regret saying it like that, man. I wasn't trying to be an asshole. I just, dude, I don't know, man. This is a tough subject to tackle because I don't know a lot about it, and it's people have this weird thing where they're like, well, you can't make a video unless you know a lot about something. And I'm like, what in the fuck sense does that make, man? We're just, and I guess I'm kind of in my own head about it because I've had a lot of weird shit said to me in the comments in the last couple of weeks. But also, some of that's probably because the channel's just getting bigger. So I got a lot more people watching it that don't know me yet. So,
Well,
yeah.
and something this split, the early '90s version they came out with, it was the first split ever on Lookout, which is a really big deal because obviously Lookout's a very important label down there, but it's early on in the punk split tradition of where this one sort of holds part of that weight, and then after this one did really well, and Lookout started putting it started making sense to Lookout to package bands together and do splits, but this was kind of the proof of concept
I didn't know
at
that. I
first.
didn't
Yeah,
know
this was the
Lookout put
first
out
one.
other splits.
Yeah, this was the first one that they ever put out. And then they put out I want to say they put out the Can of Pork compilation right after this that has some of these songs on it. So it's really it's that like first wave of Lookout when they're starting to just branch and put out all kinds of stuff and start building these compilations. Again, it's all kind of pre Green Day ish. It's all in that time period before they really took off as a label.
What other splits did Lookout do?
Uh, I don't know.
Anything that I would know?
I can Google it.
Don't use Google. That's not what we're doing now, Rob. I use Google like the whole time we've been talking today.
Well, I just told you I used AI to find information about us. So
That's wild, bro. I've
that's a
never
fun
used it.
that's a fun Friday night to just talk to AI about yourself. I'm telling you.
Dude, I've never used AI once. I don't know that I ever will unless well, okay. I've never used AI like that. I'm sure I've used AI to some degree, but like I've never sat down and been like, I'm going to use AI for something. It weirds me out.
Um. Okay. There's the Potato Men split with the Potato Man, that was Larry Livermore's actual band, who was also kind of a joke band. They were like an acoustic band that liked to play outside of the shows. They would play outside, and then like they felt they sold out by going inside. It was a whole thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Everything comes up with the shit split. But I'm. Oh wait, no. There's 5 records. Someone has a Reddit post about it. Your favorite place.
Shocked.
Let's. Uh. No. Okay. Never mind. These are not Lookout. These are just splits that people like. Never mind.
Okay. Okay. I was like, man, I don't recall ever hearing much about Lookout splits, and you'd think that that would have gotten a lot of attention, you
But I
know?
want to say there is a few, but I might be conflating that with some of the Lookout like comps. And so I may be but I do know this was their first split. That
I can tell you that comps, all they are is like 20 band splits.
that's
Everybody
I like
gets
it. I like when Fat Records put a 100 band split. I like that.
yeah, it was crazy, dude. 100 band split, man. You should see the gatefold on that thing. It just keeps going and going and going. Everybody got their own cover art.
There's a lot of politics involved in the production of that one.
Right. So how do you feel about the shit split in its entirety? Like if you had to grade that one, how would you grade it?
I would put it a little bit higher than the last one, just because I think I like more of I like more of both bands on this one. And again, we're kind of also shitting on Logical Nonsense by proxy there by saying that, but I find myself being more attracted. I find myself more attracted generally to this split than to the Grimple split, just in general.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it still hits that sort of 7 out of 10 ceiling. I think
I was gonna say I give
it's
it the
hard to.
exact same grade.
Yeah, it's exact same grade, but in the little section, if there was a comment section, I would have a lot of different comments and criteria for this than I would for the other one, because the other one I think felt a little more straightforward, like just stuff I like about it, stuff I don't like about it. This one's a lot more complicated of a release, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy. I hate whenever there's a situation like this where I don't love the whole thing. That really sucks because that's part of the beauty of having like cassette tapes and stuff. Though back when I was a kid, when you're young, a split like this is perfect because all you got to do, or not when you're young, back in the day, back in the '90s specifically, you could just take 2 or 3 albums worth of splits and pick out all the songs you really like, and you make a mixtape with all that, and you don't ever touch the album again. It's just, although the only downside to that is you don't get time with the rest of the songs, so people
Mhm.
start referencing the other songs, and you don't have any clue what they're talking about. But it's just all like personal preference on how you consume the music you like, and I don't think there's anything wrong with liking all of it. I don't think there's anything wrong with liking a little bit of it. You like what you like, and I think it's a very personal experience.
They're probably a weird concept to younger kids now, like a split, because like what would
Oh
be the
yeah,
point of a
probably, huh?
split really nowadays
Nah.
in the same kind of sense? But like for me, I remember we always talk about like the Rancid No Effect split, the Bouncing Souls Anti Flag split, the Alkaline Trio One Man Army split. That felt like
Hot
value
water
to me.
music, Leatherface. Ooh.
You're getting tons of like you're getting the price of what it was one CD, or usually these would be less too. They would be a little bit cheaper, and you're getting 2 bands on there, and you're getting 5 or
Dude,
6 songs or whatever it is. That feels like a good deal.
you know what's funny? My next release, I'm waiting on it right now, is
Mm.
actually a split.
Oh, wow. You're bringing it back, yeah.
Yeah, it's Generation Exit and Mark Lind and the Unloved. You know Mark Lind?
No.
Ducky Boys?
Okay.
Oh, bro, legend, man. Shout out Mark Lind. That guy's fucking awesome. Uh,
I like that you're
but
bringing the splits back. I
I
like
know,
that.
right?
That's the whole point of this episode, folks, was just to promote the split.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to tell everybody that, but I was going to slowly, slip it in at an hour and 2
You're
minutes.
gonna really start defending splits like midway. Splits are the most important thing. When a band does a split, it means that, and then you end it like that. That's how you got to do it.
100%, dude. Man, what do you want to cover next couple weeks, dude? Actually,
Um.
yeah, yeah. Oh, let's pick a couple bands for punk rock bowling.
Okay. You know the
Let's
lineup
see.
much better than I do.
I do. Let me pull it up real fast though, and I'll throw a couple things at you, and we'll see what sticks. But yeah, man. Other than that, I appreciate everybody listening to us talk about these split records. If you have information that we missed, or maybe you made a mistake on, or just whatever, got something to add to it, please let us know, man. I do enjoy the comment section quite a bit. I like listening to people's stories, and dude, some people have knowledge that just blows my mind. I'm like, dude, why don't you make a damn channel? I listen to a lot of shit you say, man. Like, there's a lot of people out there like, hey, look, I'm talking to you. You know who you are. I have a lot of respect for people that help me along the way with this stuff, but some people just don't want to make the videos. I get it. It's a lot of work,
It's a
and
lot of
you
work.
you also face a lot of public scrutiny. I get shit on for the weirdest reasons, dude. Like, I don't even understand it, man. I'm like, okay, I guess, man. I'm a big piece of shit. My bad. All I did was try to tell you this band was rad. Like, okay. Uh, let's go with a couple classics, dude.
Okay.
What about? Because I'm not gonna talk to you again until after PRB, I would think, right?
It's
Because
this weekend.
it's
Yeah.
not this weekend. It's next weekend.
But yeah,
But I'll I'll be
that'll be on
gone. I'll be gone Friday through Tuesday, so it'll
the
probably be a couple weeks before we talk again.
okay. So
So what if we do? How do you feel about doing the Damned? Fuck, God, I fucking talk about Coxbar, dude. I love that band so much. What about the Damned and Coxbar?
okay.
Let's do. What Coxbar album do you want to do? I mean, Shock Troops is like that's the one. That's the
Uh,
one. That's their most famous record.
we'll go with that.
Okay, and then want to do Damn Damn Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so excited to bring in the Damned Canon onto our podcast.
Well, up until recently, I wasn't even a fan of this band, and I wouldn't even call myself like an uber fan at this point. But I got a lot more respect than I used to, and I enjoy a lot more of it than I used to. So I'm excited to see them play, and I want to talk about it. So I'll have like a scene report after the show, and we'll talk about those two albums. It'll be a fun thing for me to listen to while I'm
So
out doing my thing.
the Damned is actually playing punk rock bowling. Like,
Yeah, bro, they're
oh shit,
headlining Coxbar, The Damned, Peter Light and the Hook, and Social Distortion.
nice. That's not a terrible
Dude, I know, right? Like,
headlining group, for
well,
punk
that's
rock
what I was
bowling.
thinking. I was like, man, I never was a big fan of the Damned until recently, and then I get to go see them. I was like, I feel really lucky, dude. Like, I genuinely feel like very grateful for this opportunity.
Mhm.
Let's see.
We're doing Shock Troops, right?
Yeah. So you'll be, I think, out of school by this point. Um, do you have a day that you might want to do this on?
Let me look at the calendar here.
Because I'll be back on. I'll be back on the 27th. So anytime after that, I'm pretty much open.
Um, so the following week, let's shoot for that week of the second through the sixth.
Oh, even longer. Okay, that's like a few weeks from now. Okay. So what's the date today? It's the 12th. So we're gonna go like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll just because I know I'm fairly positive my schedule's like really clear there. If there's something where that week looks bad, we'll try to fit it into that week that you come
I'll
back.
just
But
hit you up when I'm coming home,
yeah,
and you can just tell me, hey, let's wait till next week or whatever.
because yeah, end of the year is a little funky for me where it can be where I'm super available or I'm super busy and I don't.
Sure.
All
Yeah.
my stuff's kind of up in the air right now, so it's a little
Cool,
weird.
man. Yeah. Well, I'm flexible. It's all good. I'm excited about this trip, and yeah, hopefully we don't get roasted too hard in the comments on these two albums we talked about. I think we did an okay job.
I
The
don't
people
see the
that
comments. Bring it.
That's a very good point. You don't see the comments, you bastard.
All I do is I
Well,
look when I say, "Oh, cool, Rob's back," and then I just take that serotonin boost and I click off.
smart man. Oh man, hey, hang tight. I don't want to give this. I want to talk about something, but I don't want to do it on video. So thanks,
Okay.
guys. See y'all next time on the Punk Rock Review podcast.